Rwanda is like one giant prison with multiple prisons inside. And so taking asylum seekers there is literally condemning them to detention.
From your point of view, is Rwanda the right place to send these would-be asylum seekers?
Absolutely not. I couldn't contemplate any country worse than Rwanda for taking in the asylum seekers because the countries they are coming from are certainly here, but taking them to Rwanda is as much of a nightmare like the countries they are coming from.
And explain to our listeners why you think Rwanda is as much of a nightmare as the places they're seeking to escape from.
Because Rwanda, despite the standard kind of storyline that we hear many, many times from Rwanda and those who support it, especially those in the British government who are the architects of this policy of shipping the asylum seekers to Rwanda, the true story is that this is an autocratic, authoritarian state where the ordinary citizens don't have rights, where many people languish in jail and suffer from extrajudicial killings, where there are so many people who cannot participate in the political process or have a free press or have civil society organizations. And indeed, we have often said that Rwanda is like one giant prison with multiple prisons inside. And so taking asylum seekers there is literally condemning them to detention.
So you've said that Rwanda is like one giant prison, but you yourself worked with President Kagame. Has he changed, or has your opinion of him changed since the days when you worked for him?
Actually, it's that's a very excellent question. It's actually both. But my opinion has changed also because the mandate I knew also changed. Because you remember we're originally with the vision of transforming Rwanda. In the process, of course, we fought a civil war and we ended up gaining political power in Rwanda. And with time, that vision slided into Kagame becoming one guy who actually is the party, is the government, is the military, is the intelligence, is the legislature, is the executive, is everything in Rwanda. And I could see that not only was he really making people suffer within Rwanda, but he also launched into very serious wars that aggressed a neighboring country, especially Democratic Republic of Congo, where many people, as you know, have died. And so, yes, he has changed. And because of that, necessarily, my opinion about him changed. And I told him that I was no longer able to work with him. And I wrote to him in public.
And when you started to criticize him publicly, was your life in danger as a result of that?
Oh, yes. I mean, in fact, in 2010, I did write with a couple of three other people, one of whom he killed in 2013, and the other one who attempted to kill a number of times in South Africa. He also sentenced me to 24 years in jail, and he has since 2014, 2015, 2016 tried to assassinate me, and it's on public record, and the intelligence organizations in various countries, including the United States where I live, have that information. And so, yes, criticizing Kagame means that you have only three options: either to flee the country, or to be in jail, or to keep silent in the country. But even when you leave the country and go far away from him, he has a long arm in which he pursues you with a lot of passion, and sometimes he succeeds.
So you're describing a man as a warmongering dictator, not afraid to assassinate his critics. And yet Bill Clinton has called him one of the greatest leaders of our time. Tony Blair called him a visionary leader. How do you think he is persuading people, former presidents and prime ministers, that he is one thing when you're saying he's a totally different thing?
Yeah, I have always wondered about that. In fact, one thing that comes to my mind is, would actually Tony Blair and Bill Clinton go and live in Rwanda under those kinds of conditions that Rwandan citizens live? Absolutely no, they wouldn't, because they know that in their own countries, that's not what their citizens demand from them. But the fact of the matter is that Clinton and Tony Blair have been running with guilt, the guilt that they did nothing to stop the genocide in 1994. And because of that, Kagame has been very effective. And I used to be part of that circuit, probably more than Kagame himself, trying to use the guilt of the international community to keep them silent from pointing out the human rights excesses of the regime. And so I think that narrative serves them well, and they have to amplify it. And they amplify it because they know that also Kagame has something to give them in return. In this case, for the British government, he has given them a chance to deport asylum seekers to his country.
Good morning to you, Teogene. It's Carol Walker here. We're not going to have Tony Blair going to live in Rwanda, but we have got the Commonwealth heads of government heading there for their summit this week. Prince Charles, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Would you like to see some of those world leaders speaking out about Rwanda's human rights record? Or do you fear that this is going to be seen as perhaps quite a good advertisement for Paul Kagame's Rwanda?
It's the latter. And, I could actually call it, Kagame could not have expected manna from heaven greater than that, because that's really an opportunity for Kagame to show off. Of course, he will show off Kigali, capital city. He won't show them the skeletons in his cupboards. And the people who are going there will be shown the wonderful skyscrapers now in Kigali, the clean streets. And everyone whom they meet will tell them a standard script of the wonderful things of how Rwanda has transformed and a haven in the middle of Central Africa. But they won't be able, I wish they could be able to use the occasion to point out not only the good within that country, but also to point out all these dirty things that have been going on in the country thanks to President Kagame. But they won't. But I wish they could point out these things.